The views and opinions expressed on this podcast, including discussions on news, politics, and current events, are solely those of the host and guests and are based on personal thoughts, experiences, and opinions. Nothing stated should be considered factual unless independently verified by the listener. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and does not provide financial, legal, medical, political, or life advice. Any actions discussed are what we would do personally, not recommendations for others. Listeners are encouraged to do their own research and consult qualified professionals before making any decisions.
What up, what up? We're back for another episode of Ford Social Conversations, where we talk about a lot of things, but not everything, because everything don't need to be talked about. What's going on, fellas? I got my man KP. I call him Pierre.
What's going on, Leon?
What's going on? And Mr. Rashad Sullivan is in the building.
Right, we're here. You know how it is.
What's
Whiskey
going on,
sticks and
fellas?
politics, stepping through.
Whiskey sticks in politics. What's going on, fellas?
Oh, glad to be here.
Now, both of y'all had a eventful weekend or weekday or whatever you want to call it. I know you had a eventful weekend. You did the State of the City down at, was it the DPAC?
Yeah, we was at the DPAC.
And tell us a little bit about that, man.
Oh yeah, it was a very, very, very it was a great experience, right? Had a good time. A little nervous, being able to sit down with both the mayor of Durham and the mayor of Baltimore, Mr. Brandon Scott, two people that's been doing a lot for their cities. Come to find out that they from the same hometown, right. And I think that's wild to have two people from the same hometown to be mayor of some large cities. That's that I hadn't heard that before. But no, we was there as media. Was able to set up a booth and interview people as they walk by. But had a good time out there, real good time, kind of hearing what their plans were, and hearing the speech and seeing the people that the mayor was recognizing, and a lot of youth-focused organizations received some donations that night as well.
Who, you received some donations?
No, I did not. Youth-focused organizations.
Okay. All right.
They received like a $7,500 grant. So gave out a few of those. So it was a real nice knit event. And it was real cool to see the city come out and support. But no, the State of the City, I think maybe one of the parts of the night that stood out to me the most was when I got a chance to ask Brandon Scott about violent crime and how it's treated. Right, and he didn't back down from the challenge of stating pretty much that the mayor does assume that responsibility. They're not responsible for their constituents' actions, but they are responsible for the safety of their lives. And he said one of the greatest things or responsibilities of a government, of anybody's government, is the protection of its people. So that resonated with me, and I appreciated how he explained his comprehensive approach to how he's approached reducing violent crime in Baltimore.
Trying to understand this phenomena that seems to be going on right now. It's like every time there's some sort of tragic accident in the city, they want to lay it at the foot of the mayor, right? I don't know if that's fair, but I've not seen either of you run away from the challenge. Can you talk about some of the things that you're implementing or hope to be able to discuss further tonight that's going to deal with crime or violent crime in our areas?
Well, the reality is that when you're the mayor of whatever city it is, you are responsible, right? Mm-hmm. Even though it's a crazy thing that folks think you're responsible. For me, they think that I'm personally responsible for the actions of 600,000 people, but you're responsible for their lives. And the most important thing that any government can do is keep its people safe. In Baltimore, in my time in office, we have dropped homicides and shootings by 60%. Last year, we had the lowest amount of homicides that Baltimore City has had in 50 years, and they've only been keeping a record for 50 years, right? Wow. And we're doing that by having a balanced approach, like my cousin said. Yes, we have to understand that policing is a part of dealing with of crime and violence, but it's not the only part. You're talking about a comprehensive approach. We have community violence intervention workers, people that may have been involved in violence before, now going out and stopping violence and mediating issues. And we really are smart with our policing. Through our Smart Policing Initiative, we focus them through our group violence reduction strategy on the very people who are the most likely to be the victim or perpetrator of gun violence. We give them a chance. They actually get a letter directly from me that says basically, hey, we want you to stay alive, change your life, we'll help you get a housing, job, whatever. But if you don't, we're bringing down the hammer. And when you have that balanced approach and you're doing the investment into youth, you're doing the investment into education, you're creating jobs and opportunity, investment into housing, that's how you comprehensively deal with an issue that is as long-standing in cities as violence.
Yeah, I thought the interview. I was impressed how fast you got that interview out. It was done and it was out, man. You did good work on it. I was proud to see.
Appreciate it.
You didn't look nervous. I knew you wouldn't be nervous. I mean, we knew you was going to do that, and I thought it was dope. But no, man, you didn't look nervous like a natural. And so
Working on it.
I did like the interview. I liked the things that they were saying. There was, talks before Brandon Scott come, like, why are we reaching out to somebody else, for solve our problem? And
Excellent
I think
question.
And it's a question, but you should be able to reach out to your cohort, or your contemporary, somebody that's doing this thing. Even though I don't know if that city's bigger than Durham, but nevertheless, it doesn't matter. It's the same issue.
Exactly.
And you seeing that they have a path, they've created a path to lower their rates. Why would you not reach out? At least he's doing something.
Exactly.
So I thought that was a very positive thing.
Right. I think it spoke for itself, right? And I don't shy away from that. That's definitely a question that Leo will be able to answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why would I reach out to a Brandon Scott, someone that's been able to reduce crime by so much in his own city, someone who's just newly minted as the president of the African American Mayors Association,
Mm-hmm.
right? So seeing somebody take on that level of leadership, why not glean from him what he or she, it could have been a woman for all I care,
right?
Glean whatever you can from
Right.
them that can help you and the people that you care about.
Get some best practices.
Exactly.
And what's working well, and that's how you grow, and that's how you solve problems. So I say the kudos to the mayor on that one.
For sure.
And let's just see what comes about, from what I would say is a workshop. So we'll see.
So what went on the inside? Did that's what we didn't get to see? Did the community get to ask questions, or they just spoke? The mayors just spoke.
So it was approached like a table side chat almost. There was a moderator, and then there was Brandon Scott and Leo that sat down and they conversed after Leo spoke for a few minutes about different topics important to the city, what he cared about. And then, like I said, they sat down and had a conversation. So there weren't any questions taken from the crowd per se. He did speak on the young lady that had been tagging him a lot online. That's been very active with the cookouts that have been planned. I think there's another one coming up. And so he didn't say her name, which he probably should have.
Right.
But he didn't. He chose not to.
And she's saying his name. He might have said her name.
I would say her name.
Well, we'll make sure that we don't get no smoke. We don't want no smoke either way. But certainly, he brought up the fact that he was upset that they hadn't spoken sooner because they actually agreed on more than what they disagreed on.
Correct.
And so he felt, and so he was not ashamed to say that, he is okay listening to someone like her, right? And that he valued her opinion, and apparently he promised to commit to funds, for these community events. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I saw one of her TikToks where she said that he actually did. He came through,
right?
Came through on his word. So all positive things. Obviously, there are going to be some challenges with any job. But I know there was another recent win. I don't know if you guys saw the article. The company AbbVie, $1 billion investment, commitment to Durham.
Mm-hmm.
So the mayor's taking this as a win. Under his administration, as he should, right? So just good things happening for here in Durham. I think the state of the city, it's in good hands. I'm interested to see how things play out. I'm hoping that communities, people are not forced out of their communities, but his idea of affordable living versus just making affordable housing.
Right.
I think he stood on that. And I was appreciative of that message.
I'm glad that is his message. I understand what he's saying. He started saying that early during the campaign.
Affordable living.
Yeah, he started talking about affordable living, and then people kept trying to jam down his throat. What about affordable housing? He was like, well, if you don't have an affordable living, then how are you going to afford the housing?
Right.
And so that's fixing it at the root rather than just putting a Band-Aid on it. So I noticed that he started speaking that way. I was like, okay, all right. And then in your interview, he mentioned it. So, all good stuff, I think.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Well, it remains to be seen what goes on in Durham.
No, understandable.
Now, go ahead.
No, and so I had the liberty to go and attend an event.
Hold on, wait. Since I got to bring up the gatekeeping first. You see how I tried to skip the gatekeeping part?
that was the next segment.
Right. So talk about the event you went to, KP, where you was accused of gatekeeping in the chat.
That's the way you want to frame the question?
Yeah.
Listen, y'all, the chat got to be stopped. I felt ostracized in there, man. I was not gatekeeping. It was an event that Frank, who we interviewed, Frank told me this is an event I probably need to attend. There are going to be some people there that I probably need to meet.
Wait a minute, before you even go ahead. When you put that in there that you was going at it, and I seen it, I looked it up. I said Frank. He was the first person that came to my mind.
Yeah. Frank made sure he was on me about registering to go and make sure that I get there because, as promised, he put me in front of a lot of important people here within in this city that's making a lot of things happen, and so able to meet a lot of those people and maybe we're gonna start some collaborations. So that's what it forced. But it was the event was held at the iconic North Carolina Mutual building. And not a lot of people know this, but in that building they have a carved out space, Providence 1898.
Okay,
is what they called it, and it's a workspace that that's created, and there's a lot of different businesses that are in there because they kind of rent space there. But it's an open workspace where people can come and work. Of course, you have to be a member there, but some people have the suites, and the suites are glass doors, and it's let's just say the courtyard where everybody, it's a workspace. It's a lot of workspaces, and you can have meetings there. I've seen several people having meetings there, and there are other entities that are in there that can be beneficial to you if you're looking to get into business or having a mentor or something like that. But the workspace is pretty dope because when you get in there, you're going to see artwork, and that artwork is going to be a Floyd McKissick. It's going to be it's going to be artwork like we have here, and it's going to be paintings of young African Americans. So you can kind of get an idea what it looks like. They even have in that workspace, there's the barber, like how back in the day where they had the spiraling candy cane barber looking thing,
right?
Barber pole.
The barber pole, is coming from our barber,
our resident barber,
and that barber pole that they have specifically in there was the one from James Merritt.
Oh.
Which was, if anybody knows the history, he was the one that was cutting hair in that building, and he was cutting a lot of people hair that he was able to have conversation with, and they taught him business, and that's how he started getting into acquiring businesses, getting into the real estate market and things like that from cutting hair. And he started, and then they started the insurance company, which was one of the first Black-owned insurance companies in the country. And so they have that barber pole in the middle of the workspace area. The original one.
Oh,
and so
check that out.
Yeah, so it's a nice little workspace. But inside there are like funding, there's venture capitalist type of people in there. And they put on an event, I think it was called Bold Path Fellowship. If I'm not mistaken, I think NC Idea is one of the funders for this event. The event was they were giving $120,000 to 5 entrepreneurs, and the money is designed. You know what it is when you're trying to start a business. You're starving. You're probably not turning a profit, or sometimes you're not making enough money where you can just sit. So you have to go to work and earn money so that you can pay your bills while you work on your business.
Exactly.
This was designed to select 5 people that have already kind of started their business. Some of them have started it already. They're in the infant stage, and some of them are in the development stage. And this money was designed, they gave them $120,000 apiece. And this money is designed for them to be able to focus on their just building it, where they don't have to worry about where they're going to eat and if their bills are going to be paid. And so freeing up somebody financially so that they can work on their dream.
Exactly.
I thought that was pretty dope. And just listening to some of the recipients, they was all young. And because that's who had to qualify for it. And so a lot of them went to school at Duke, some went to Central. But I thought it was really nice. And we got to hear a lot of their stories. And because it was different events going on throughout the day. And in that particular event, it was a lot of the investors that was in there. And that's why I was there. So I can get with the investors.
10-4. Gatekeeping indeed. Gatekeeping indeed.
Gatekeeping indeed.
Not you, man.
You about to get that bourbon out.
So it was dope, man. Just listening to these I was impressed with the young generation. They spoke very eloquent. They knew their craft. They knew their business. They even shared some of the sacrifices they had to make. And so, just be on the lookout for at least those five young entrepreneurs. So that was it. And then they end up having a mixer they have a terrace on that building. They had a DJ out there, and it was, serving hors d'oeuvres, and it was a mixer for everybody to come in. And that's when they presented the checks. So, but it was, I was glad I went. So it was pretty dope.
Yeah. Provident 1898 is located in Durham. It's 411 West Chapel Hill Street, Durham, North Carolina. And you also can, which I tried to, you can book a tour.
Okay.
But the times for me wouldn't adding up right. But I'm gonna get in that building and look around, see what's going on in there.
I heard that.
Yeah. I think you can just go in there. I mean, at the times I've been in there, you can just go in there. I mean, but that Provident is locked. I mean, you can get in, but you can't get into the workspace. You got to have badge access.
Yeah, you got memberships. They have a day pass. They have meeting rooms.
And it's not expensive.
Right.
You would think that paying a monthly membership to be able to work in that workspace is expensive. It is less than a cell phone bill a month. And it's really nice. It's real nice in there.
Depending on what your cell bill is.
Depending on your service with, right?
Yeah. Well,
is that where they had the candidate forum? There was a candidate forum not too long ago. I'm not sure. You said off of Chapel Hill Street.
It's the NC building. It's the NC
North Carolina Mutual building.
Yeah,
tall
building.
Yeah, there was a candidate forum in there before the primaries. It was weeks before the primaries. Like one of the first forums where everybody spoke. So I've been in there.
You've been in there?
It was like downtown. It was like the bottom floor, lower area that we were at.
That it is on the bottom floor. The Provident 1898 is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I was in there before. I don't remember seeing the barber pole, so I gotta go back and check for that.
Yeah, the barber pole. Yeah, it's in there. It's like in the middle.
Okay.
So I'm sorry for.
Well, we appreciate you sharing with us. After the fact. If there's anything else coming up, you certainly feel free to let us know. We can support you.
I tell you, man.
Yeah.
Be your own. Be your own.
Yeah, you're right. It be your own. You said it. Well, moving on. Let's talk about this Southern Poverty Law Center. I think that's what it's called. Let's talk about that. What's been going on? I didn't know nothing about it. To Rashad put it in the chat, and maybe he can explain it a little bit more. let the people know what exactly is it? Do you know, KB?
Yeah. The Southern Property Law Center is responsible for. They take donations. And basically, what they do is they go after, and it's for everybody. It's not just for black folk, not for the black community. They'll take up the fight of civil liberties and injustices for everybody. But primarily, they use data for their fight, and they use their data, and of course, they have counsel that's with them. But I think it started in 1970, somewhere up in there. And they've been around for a long time. And basically what they do is they use a lot of the funds to infiltrate a lot of these hate groups, whether it be the KKK or whether it be the Proud Boys or whether it be any of these hate groups that are running. They have systematically bankrupt a lot of them.
The KKK.
Yeah, they bankrupt a lot of them, and they've been very, very, very good at it. And what's happening right now is Kash Patel and FBI is looking for a way to dismantle them, just like they're dismantling everything within the government already. Anything that's for us, like the Consumer Protection Bureau, EPA, they're trying to dismantle. They're trying to eliminate everything that gives the people a voice and allow others to run roughshod over everything. And so what they've done is they have, I don't know what grand jury they got to, so they're trying to indict them. The indictment is that the Southern Property Law Center paying the informants, and they're spending it. They're saying that because we're like, okay, they're paying informants. Good. That's how you get the information. That's how you take the thing down from within.
Exactly.
But they're spending it that they've been paying them to stay in business. They're spending it saying that they've been paying. And then they have a problem with the payments. They're going to try to get them on like wire fraud and all that. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But they're trying to spin it to say that they're paying the Ku Klux Klan to stay in business.
Exactly. Well, and they're making it seem like they're doing it under that they're not being honest with the auspices of what they're raising the money for. Right. And say that the people don't know why they're saying that they're paying the informants. And coincidentally, they're saying that they're paying, like, literally to do it, just to like, oh, we're paying the Klan. So it's very dishonest. It's just it can't be a serious claim.
They're saying that they're taking the money, but they're also paying the Klan.
So so for example, the informant is a member of the Klan.
Okay,
and they're paying the informant
for information.
Mm-hmm.
But that's sick. That's what essentially is really happening in real time. But they're saying that they're paying them. They're spending it to say that they're paying them to keep them in business.
When that's not the case.
But that's not the case. They've bankrupt. They brought down so many of these hate groups. They brought down for over 50 years, and this is going. I don't know where this is going to go, but they're bringing that up. But they're also trying to do where they're saying the SPLC is not forthcoming with how they pay. So here's the deal, because they're going to try to get them on wire fraud. If you're an informant and you're getting paid from the Southern Property Law Center, they're gonna know. People are gonna know.
They don't want to see you. You're not gonna want to walk into your bank with a check from the SPLC.
Right.
They have to.
They create these other companies
to pay them
so that they can keep their informant protected.
Exactly.
And so because there can be a paper trail where some of the leaders or some of the other people within those organizations kind of get traction, and before you know it, these people are ousted. And so in order for the Southern Property Law Center to pay them, they had to create other businesses, and they were paying the informants that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're trying to say that's unethical, and they're not being forthcoming
to the people that's donating to the cause. It's intellectually dishonest, right? Mm-hmm. We know that this has been an organization that's just been like, gargantuan in regards to dismantling the KKK, right, and other hate organizations in this country. And like you said, they're not just looking out for, Black people. It's looking out for everybody, because that at one point in time, you had a lot of people that were in these hate groups, but they were at high levels of power, right? When the Klansman was the sheriff, when he was the judge and the sheriff's deputy, and then the police, and the doctor, and
Correct.
all of those people were part of these hate groups at the levels of power. And so you have when you don't have any defense against that, how do you dismantle something? You do it from the inside, right? Think of the SPLC. I was thinking about it earlier. That's like our COINTELPRO.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, if everybody familiar with COINTELPRO?
Counterintelligence program by the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what brought down Black Panthers.
Exactly.
Every time I hear that word, that's all I think about.
Huh?
Every time I hear that word, that's what I think about. Black Panthers.
Well, because I can't remember the number. I remember the number. I'm losing it. But I used to remember when they were investigating the Black Panther Party, and not just the Black Panther Party. They was everywhere. I'm gonna circle back to this, but there was a number. If they had like 80 cases open, 70 of them was of Black leaders. They had dockets on all these guys here.
Exactly.
They had folders on every last one of these guys, and they didn't do anything to the hate groups, the KKK, or any of that. It was specific because it was J. Edgar Hoover, and they were specifically after Black groups. Now, the thing
before we move on from that, you mentioned J. Edgar Hoover. His whole thing was that we don't want a Black Messiah.
That's it.
We don't want a leader to come up, for them to galvanize behind. Which is why you have Fred Hampton. That this man was gunned down, laying beside his pregnant girlfriend, his partner, carrying his child, right?
Right.
And that happened. Where did that happen? In Chicago. Maybe that's why the people in Chicago are so rowdy.
Maybe so, man.
Dealing with the law enforcement that they have. I don't know if anybody's ever made that connection. But I'm definitely wondering if there's a connection between the reason Chicago behaves the way it does with violence, on the heels of what happened to Fred Hampton in Chicago.
I mean, I think some of that can be tied to it. But it was an informant that gave them all the blueprints of where he was going to be sleeping, how to get in, where the man at the door was going to be. And they knew right where to go, and they knew right where to, but before that, they had already drugged him. One of the people that gave him something, that's why he was asleep. He was in a more like a comatose state. So they just executed him and Mario Clark, the other guy that died with him. And I forget the guy's name that was the informant that we found out who he was. And I think there's 4-part series on Eye on the Prize. And the guy, he kind of admitted to it. And I think right after that interview, he went outside and ran in front of a car to kill himself.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It's it was either part 3 or part 4 of Eye on the Prize. And it was him admitting to being coerced to give information on where Fred was going to be, the layout of the property. And again, that's happened. So the other part I want to go back to is the SPLC have taken these people down. The FBI or the CEI or the FBI, they have their own way that they pay informers and things like that. They used to work until the Trump administration. They work directly with the FBI. Once they get the data and the information, they go to the FBI. Hey, this is what we got. They work together to bring those things down. Well, they severed ties with the SPLC earlier last year.
Wow, yeah.
Which
went under the radar.
Yeah,
nobody talked about that.
Yeah, nobody talked about that. And so, because the FBI knew that they were going to come after him, they knew that they was like, yeah, we're going to sever ties with him so we can attack him. But what was amazing is that the FBI does the same thing.
Yes,
they get paid informants to infiltrate places. What we know, but we all know that they have never taken down.
What's going on? I hope that you are enjoying this episode, but I wanted to take the time out to ask you to please subscribe to the podcast. I've noticed that a lot of people are watching but are not subscribed. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. That way you won't miss an episode when it's aired or about to air. And also make sure you go to impelforwardmerch.com. That's impelforwardmerch.com. Grab you something. Now back to the episode.
None of these hate groups, none of these white hate groups, they've never taken them down. The only thing they've taken down is our leaders and our movement. That is it. And because here's the deal. It is known that the paid informers that the FBI had was in the car when Viola Wozer was killed.
Yes.
The FBI also had an informant who was when the guy bought the dynamite to blow up the 16th Baptist Church. It's documented. He was the informant, they didn't stop it. We also know about Brother Malcolm being murdered. We know that every time, they were surveilled. They always surveilled, but they still got killed, right? You had a heavy police presence, but they still were able to get murdered. They still got murdered. So the FBI and they can miss me with this bull crap about attacking the SPLC, because their informants, they paid informants, but their informants was there when a lot of these things happened. They didn't avert any of it.
Not serve any time or anything like that for the atrocity.
So they were there and they didn't stop any of it. So,
and I guarantee the informants are not taking checks signed by the FBI into the bank.
That's my point. Right. It's like, I can't take these people serious, Rashad. It's almost, if it wasn't so sad, it'd be funny. But the hypocrisy that comes with this, and I think they don't think we see it or understand it. Like, we know what y'all are doing, so.
I gotta take one of those terms from Reese Colbert. They're unserious. They're unserious, and they playing in our faces. And we gotta hopefully this this doesn't go anywhere in the courts. I think that's where it is right now.
I hope so. I mean, they've been indicted, but as any lawyers worth their weight, they know that the term is you can indict a ham sandwich. Anybody can be indicted. That's the term of you can indict a ham sandwich. So they've been indicted. So apparently they impaneled a grand jury behind closed doors. And remember, you're not there as the defendant. This is just they're presenting information. And then once you're indicted, then you get to fight what they say. But the person who's being indicted is not there when the grand jury is impaneled. So so they were indicted. So we're gonna see where this goes.
Yeah, definitely gotta keep an eye on that.
Keep an eye on it. Moving on to the Strait of Hormuz for another week. What's been going on with that? Your president is threatening to blow up things.
Again, talking about unserious, I can't take this dude serious, man. He sets a deadline, he moves it, he extends it because they're not reacting to it. Just for the audience, the Strait of Hormuz has never been closed. It's only closed to the U.S. There's a ship tracker that tracks their ships going in and out of there, especially ones going to going to India and China and a few other countries that have made deals with the Iranian government. And they're paying, but they're getting through, And so it's only closed to the U.S. and his allies. And so I don't know what to make of it. It's open, it's closed. He's saying he makes threats. He backs away from the threats. Rashad, what you think? I mean, the man, they were talking, they had I don't know how well this has been reported. It's been reported that one of the generals, I will say the general, but he left out from the White House and then they asked him to retire because he was, Trump was asking to enact a nuclear code. This guy was like, I'm not doing that.
Oh,
Apparently
wow.
that happened over the weekend. I don't know how true it is. A couple of outlets are reporting it. Do I believe it? I tell you, I believe it, did not believe it. Because the Navy admiral or one of them, I think they just asked him to retire today. I think because him and Pete Hegseth getting into it. But they're getting rid of everybody. So it's just nothing but the people in the clown car running the country.
I think it's a lot of back and forth. There
Mhm.
hasn't been a clear message as far as where we stand, or even if we're at, or are we at war right now? I don't think anybody's come out and said that, but that's where we are. We got to be at war at this point. So there was supposed to have been a ceasefire, right?
Right.
Was negotiated through Pakistan. Am I understanding that
The
correctly?
first one, yes.
The first one.
Mhm.
All right. And then, there was a blockade.
Right.
A blockade
of the
blockade.
right.
Right. Whereas I was kind of unclear on those details.
Right.
But I think I think we're just tired, just as a person, a human being. I wish we would just mind our business and just figure out a way to get this resolved. Because at this point, we're spending money every day that could be dedicated to all of the L's that we have at our own front door.
Right.
I think that money would be better spent here. Education. We got the teachers ready to strike. Big teacher strike coming up here.
Here.
Here in North Carolina coming up, right?
Right.
And I'm pretty sure teacher pay across the nation could use a benefit, right? And so understanding that Americans are really feeling like our prices, they're not getting cheaper. Nothing's getting cheaper at this point. Eggs are still expensive. Beef is more expensive. The cost for a combo is definitely up, right?
Energy
Prices is up. I'm seeing here one of the things that happened is that Alabama residents, their energy bills are going up because due to the big beautiful bill or the Doge, one of the cuts was a subsidy that blue states were paying to red states to help supplement their electric bills. Like they were literally like, and I don't know if this is said enough, but blue states pay for red states
all the time.
Red states take in more from the federal government than what they pay out in taxes.
Right. That is a
and nobody talks about that enough.
No, they don't. But you're right. The blue states float the bill.
Yes. And so now that DEI or that waste, fraud, and abuse has been cut, they no longer get that subsidy. So a lot of them are seeing 60% increase in their electric bill.
I mean, we saw an increase here still even before the war in our gas. I know that.
Gas prices.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about natural gas. I saw that, but I think, but there's something that's going on just here in this state with people being overcharged, and they're trying to, there is some groups out there fighting. I don't know enough of it to speak on it right now, but I kind of overheard a little bit of it. But I do know that energy is costing more now, and nothing is getting better. But this is what they voted for, and this is what they wanted.
No, for sure. I mean, some places you only have one company that's, the energy company that you go to, but I thought there's supposed to be competition. How we only got one company to pick from.
So it's a one company monopoly, because that one company, it would probably now in those different areas, it probably absorbed all those other ones, which you shouldn't let happen. But it does happen.
Yeah.
But when we look at the state of our union and where we are with this war, is it's just like you said, man, it's just wasting a lot of money. Tupac said it best, man. You got money for wars, but can't feed the poor. Trump said it out his mouth last week. He was like, "We don't have money for childcare. We don't got money for, we don't got money for any of that stuff y'all want. We got to
too big for that."
You're right. He said we got to fund our military. And that should scare anybody when you hear the president say some stuff like that. And you watch him just come up with the money. But when you ask for money for the things that the programs, like you say here, we don't have it. But they seem to always find it when it's time to go to war. And then he's asking for an increase to $1.5 trillion for the military. Taking it from like 800 or 900 billion to 1.5 trillion.
Right.
So
That's one of the things that came up in the conversation that I was listening to this week. When it seems like when the GOP comes up with what they want and the cost for it, there's never a conversation of bickering amongst themselves on how we're going to pay for it, right? But when they try to take care of student loans, it was a lot of Democrats was against paying off the student loans.
Yeah.
And they would always say, how are we going to pay? They would be the ones like, oh, well, how are we going to pay for that? And this man literally comes back and he's a couple more $1 trillion he's asked for in his war budget. Not sure the exact number. We can find out what it was. Look up. He just recently put out a proposal asking for additional money.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. He wanted to increase it from like 800 or 900 billion to 1.5 trillion. And that's in his budget proposal.
Right.
Of course that's they got to vote on it. But
you don't hear anybody on the GOP saying how we're going to pay for that.
No. Well, they do know because they know they're going to take it from your Medicare, Medicaid. They know they're going to take it from SNAP recipients. They know that they're going to take it from all these other places. And so that's how they're going to do it, because that's how they do it.
And I say that so that the conversation can go, or people can start thinking about the leadership that we're putting in place, right? Just because they got a D beside their name, that don't mean they automatically are in tune with everything that you agree with, right?
And some of those people with D's have been bought and paid for. By APAC.
When we say D's, are we talking about Democrats?
We are.
For the audience, I know what we're talking about.
Oh, right.
For the audience.
Yes.
So it says President Trump has requested record-breaking $1.5 trillion in defense funding for the 2027 fiscal year, marking a 42% increase from previous levels. This request, outlined in April 2026, aims to fund military expansion, including in the Iran war, while proposing to cut $73 billion from domestic programs such as housing, education, and health.
There it is.
They called it entitlements for a reason.
Yeah.
They've been calling it entitlements my entire adult life.
To give it a bad name.
Right.
When it's really you're supposed to help your people. But the programs that help your people, they labeled as entitlements. And I don't know, man. Sometimes I don't know, man. It's just so much evil thought, and it's hard to make sense of it. I also I heard something today that it says that if you ever notice, it's always the conservative parties that go to war with each other because they see themselves in each other. And because it's the conservative party here that's warring with you got to remember the Ayatollah and all, they're the conservative party of Iran.
I didn't know that.
Right. So it's every time every time we go into war, it's always the conservative apparatus here warring with the conservative apparatus abroad, wherever. And the person I was listening to, they went through a whole a bunch of them, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. And that's kind of true, because war is money. War. I mean, the U.S. is spending a lot of money, but it's just being transfer of wealth. And it's something about conservatives. They always want to go to war. And the guy was making that point, and he was giving different scenarios. And I was like, oh my God, I never even thought about that. But that's absolutely right.
It does seem like, usually it's like an economic rebound, right? Because Great Depression came, right? Then we had World War II.
Yeah.
Right? That helped pull us out of it.
Yeah.
I would say that I definitely agree with what you brought up, and that additional piece to help give us a standing ground. This is stuff that we take into consideration in the primaries, right? This is the focus that we need to have when we're looking at, all right, well, hey, as we're looking at the field and who they're going to try to put in front of us for 2028, let's be specific. Let's be intentional about all of the leaders
All of this.
that we're going to put in place surrounding them as well,
Mhm.
right? We can't have these grandiose ideas for the person at the top of the ticket, but we don't have anybody anywhere else to support those ideas, right?
Right.
So we have to make sure that, hey, the people that we send to Congress, they got to have the same ideas. The people that we send to the Senate, they got to have the same ideas, right? And then obviously the person that we put in the presidency, you hope and pray that they, they represent the ideas that
Right.
you have. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so if you're doing that, that is when, hey, third party, that could be appropriate, but
Could be appropriate.
that work starts now. That work starts 2026.
It starts now. Like I said, man, we can talk about a lot of this stuff. And the one thing that we didn't have on the list to talk about when we're talking about parties is the Virginia went to vote and they voted and they passed that resolution to
They
redraw those maps.
did. They did.
And listen, is it right? Yes and no. Miss what's her name? She's the state senator. She's running it, man. She's dope. Louise Lucas, I think that's her name.
Something like that.
Yeah. And she's like, they started, we're gonna finish it.
Yes.
She got that energy.
Yes.
It went from 5-6 to 10-1. So there are going to be a lot of Republicans drawn out of there. Do I agree with it? Yes. No. The only thing that I agree with is about time. It's about time Democrats start fighting back. And we saw it in California,
right?
And we saw it in Virginia. The difference between what happened is because Trump never started this when he picked up that phone and he called Abbott.
Yes.
And
they did it in Texas first.
They did it in Texas. It
happened to Jasmine Crockett. She no longer has she will not be in Congress anymore.
Once her term is up, it's over. The difference between California and Virginia, they put it on the ballot. Texas didn't do that.
Nope.
That's what the Republicans, this is what it is. We redrawing it. They accept the maps. That's the difference. So I would say when Texas did it, we got it first, actually. North Carolina did it first. Back in 2021, 22, somewhere up in there.
They got sued because they were like, North Carolina, it was
surgical like precision. Yes. They were saying so racist that even a GOP appointed judge was like, hey man, this is racist.
Yikes.
So they did it first, but the Democrats did not respond because they did what Democrats do, which is try to rule off the rule of law.
Well, they
govern from the rule of law.
For sure. But remember, the Dems, they're the ones that introduced outlawing gerrymandering.
And they a comprehensive bill where they outlawed it, where you could not do it unless it was constitutional legal, which is any year ending in 1. And so, which is after the census. So for the audience, we do the census every 10 years. Every year that ends in a 0 constitutionally, that's when the census is done. And then the redistricting of the map based off of census information, that information tells the government where everybody lives, where the funding needs to go for schools. And so they use that information to then draw the maps.
I got to plug in too. They draw the maps, but plug in, fill out the census. That's how they determine how much money come to your area. They know where you are. If they want to get you, they can get you when you go live or post on social media or pick up your cell phone.
Yeah.
So if anybody wanted to track you, they can track you. But fill out the census because that's what determines what funds come to your area for sure. So
the Black community has been.
We don't really fill out the census.
We don't fill out the census, and I have to be honest. I've been guilty of that. It's because of the traumas that's been passed down to us. Someone showing up at the door asking who lives here is reminiscent of how they showed up and got Emmett Till out that house, right? Or we have they know where we are, so they know where we're concentrated. They know where to use that information to hurt us. And so I think from the Black community, we kind of we don't trust them because of the past. But you and I are saying, all right, the cat's out of the bag because of technology. They kind of know where everybody is now anyway. But if you fill it out, it gives you more representation, more power. And that's what they use to draw these maps to get you representation in Congress.
Exactly.
And so it's done, every decade. they're doing these mid-decade redistricting is illegal per se, but Texas started it, and the Democrats say they're going to finish it. So I do know, and
Virginia finished it.
Right. And the thing about Texas, though, Texas thinking that they're drawing these black leaders out of these districts, I don't think it's going to go the way they think. They're thinking they're going to get a 5 seat. I think they probably may get 3 because there's been some talks about they may only get 3 out of what the 5 that they were trying to get in Texas. Obviously, it's net zero because of what's going to happen in California and freaking Virginia. They went 10-1. So it's only one there's only one Republican district. I don't think it's fair. I know it's not right, but at this point, the way the Trump people are supporting him when he does some crazy stuff, then at this point, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying I agree with it, but it's about time the Democrats started fighting back. And a bully don't know he's a bully till he gets punched in the mouth. Because other than that, he's just running around doing whatever you want to do. And for me, it's about time they start fighting back.
I don't disagree with that at all.
Mm-hmm.
It did seem like there was always one party that seemed to be smarter than the other, or willing to go the extra mile than what the other party was. And it seems like the Democrats have definitely grown a backbone. Would seem
they've grown some kahunas.
And Virginia, told Texas to hold my beer.
Right, that's what they said. To hold my beer.
Hold my beer. They brought a whole state down to one Republican district. But I think it's I can't judge whether it's fair or not, right? Like that's not my call. It was put to a vote. It'd been different if they came together
like Texas did it.
They just did
it, right?
But the fact that it was put to a vote,
and
I don't live in Virginia.
That says a lot.
That it says a ton.
Yeah, it says a lot.
And so it played out the way it played out. I'm interested to see how the shift of power can happen. But I did also come across a couple of articles where they were saying that the way Texas has done their maps, that they might be overcounting.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I've been seeing.
As far as how they've drawn it,
they kind of like
they're not all in the bag the way they think it could be supposed to be in the bag. Listen,
we're playing spades. They talking about they got 8 books. I got 5 in my hand. All I need you to say is you got. Can you get me one in the possible? Because we about to set them. And that's what essentially that's what the way I read it, the way you're understanding it as well. It's like it's not in the bag.
Yeah, a couple of districts, maybe a little heavier Latino. And with them, you never really could tell.
No, we know. I will vote for Donald.
That was in 24.
I think they got all this going on. Wake up call.
FAFO. That's the new term.
They got their wake up call, and we tried to tell them.
Listen,
we've been trying to tell them. We've got 400 years with these folks. We know them, and so so I'm not gonna say welcome aboard, but we're glad you're here.
Listen,
yeah. Well, moving on. Former Lieutenant Governor, I think that's correct. What's his name? Justin Fairfax. Killed his wife in Virginia. Now we got mental health, but do you think it was mental health or just they was going through divorce, but they were still staying in the same house? Could you consider that mental health issue, or
I think when Rashad and I was sussing this out, we just sussed it out to the mental health portion of it because we tied in what happened in Shreveport over the weekend, and what happened in Shreveport with the man killing his children.
Oh, that's
killed 8 children.
Yeah,
7 of them was his.
Yeah, and we're talking shooting, and then killed shot his is it his wife? He killed his girlfriend. The side piece.
The girlfriend was shot and the wife was shot.
And she was shot. I think the wife is still in critical condition, something like to that magnitude. But we want to say it's some mental health there, because these guys, for whatever reason, said, you know what, enough is enough. Um, is it something that's been underlined, has been there, that could have been treated, could have been addressed? This we don't know, because both of these issues are separate in the way we may look at it, but they're equal in the actions that have happened.
Yes.
And so we just come to, is there, if the black men suffering from uh, this form of mental health where instead of just taking their own lives, they decide to take others with them. That's the problem I have. If you're going to take, leave others alone. If you want to be selfish and take yourself out, I understand that. But don't take nobody else with you, especially these babies. That breaks my heart.
I think it's the mental health term got thrown around a lot, especially ever since, the former lieutenant governor of Virginia, after his incident. And then literally like the next day or a day or two after that, you had the incident in Shreveport. You would just hope that it's mental health, right? I don't think anybody in their right mind wakes up, just with the thought that they want to go murder their 7 children. I can't think of anybody that I would want to consider a human being, right? That have a thought process like that. And then he gets into a shootout with the police, which, that's a death wish. We know that, death by police, is a route of suicide people have chosen, over the years. And so when we think about just the term mental health, I think it puts a lot of focus on black men where you're right. There's an issue. We need to figure out what it is. We need to seek help so that we can be collectively better men. But even focusing on that and saying we still missing the mark, because, black women have been under attack for quite some time. And we're dealing with a situation where their lives just don't seem to have any value. We're seeing all the time sisters being the victims of domestic abuse.
Too many.
Whether that's with, black man, white man, whomever.
Right. It's just too many.
It's just too many to count. And they feel unprotected as a population. We hear the term that I learned, femicide, has come up, right? That came up in the group chat.
Well, I don't know. Did femicide come up in the group chat?
Yeah,
I think it did. Yeah,
it came up. I didn't know what it was, but I'm learning about what it means, and just just even around the world, how just women sort of live like this, like a second-rate life,
And the misogynoir.
And the misogynoir is just directed at black women, right? Understanding what that term means. It's a lot that we on our shoulders that, those of us that may not be having those mental issues, like we have to figure out how we can be better allies, better advocates for our black women.
Right.
They operate in spaces where they don't feel like they're being protected. And so we got to figure it out. It's a tough conversation to have. That's not one thing I want to, wake up and hear, just another podcast going viral about how trifling black men are,
right,
and how nobody's protecting black women, and how black men are not taking care of their kids. Thankfully, it seems the research as of late has proven to the contrary, right? They're saying that black men are present fathers. You know what I mean?
Right.
But keeping the focus where it should be, like, we got to figure out a way to make sure that our women feel protected. And I don't know if I had the answer on how to do it.
It's hard, man, because these women are meeting their demise by a loved one. And
not a stranger.
Yeah, these are not strangers, and they're meeting the demise of a loved one, and where there's signs, we don't, it's hard to look at this Justin Fair. So if you look at the two men, it's hard, he's a lieutenant governor. He's could have almost been governor, but then he had the allegations.
Exactly.
And so that set him back on the bench a little bit. And then obviously from that, he probably started suffering some divorce. and it just caused him probably to spiral out of control. Like he's losing it all. But looking at him, you don't see the action that he actually ended up doing. When you look at this other guy in Shreveport, you can kind of sometimes you can see it on people, kind of like, where there's a look that's very menacing, is very absent. They're like they're here, but they're absent. And it can be very menacing looking. Look, I don't know how to explain it. You just know it when you see it, and if obviously once it's hard. It's not fair to the guy when I say I've seen this picture after he done the crime. So obviously I'm gonna think he's the most evilest person. But looking at the picture that is shown, you can kind of see a couple of pictures. You kind of see like, oh no, something ain't right about him. I had a guy that worked for me in the hospital, and I saw him and I always thought something wasn't there. I was like, something's off about him. He was very just different. Because I don't want to label, but he was very different. And I always was like, he just don't look wrapped too tight, right? And at the time I stayed in an apartment complex, and I did not know that he lived there too. And one morning I came to work, and they was like, hey, you didn't see what happened in your complex? And I was like, no, what happened? It was like, they called the young man's name. It was like, he killed his 2 kids and he stabbed him. And my heart broke for those kids. Well, let me say this. Come to find out, it was not the floor I was on. It was the one above me. And the same building, just right above me. And I tell you, Rashad, I didn't sleep for weeks because all I can think about is hearing those babies scream as their father stood over them. This is not by gunfire. This is by stabbing. That means that they're seeing it happen. And you as a father, you're continuing with it as they're fighting for their life. Man, I didn't sleep for weeks. I could not sleep. And it was that guy. It was him. So when I hear people harming children, yeah, man, that just does something to me. I don't like this state of, you shouldn't harm your wife or the loved one that you're with. Just walk away. You can start over.
Yes.
It's okay. To the men that are going through it and they think that the woman's playing in their face. Yes, they can do things that you don't like, but that does not mean that you should take their life
at all.
And, call a friend, call your boy, call somebody before you go off the edge like that. Hoping that, that could help. But when somebody decides to take their children's life, I don't know, man, that's another level.
I think that's why, it was, fell under the umbrella of mental health. Because we just don't think, like I said earlier, we don't think anybody in their right mind just woke up and just said, hey, let me do this today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, hearing the story that you went through, right, having that happen, I could see how, you just wouldn't be able to sleep. Like,
couldn't sleep.
I can imagine being close to something like that.
Yeah.
That's
the fact
stuff
that
you got to talk to somebody about.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that I knew him, he worked in my department, and that look, it was, I was like, something's not right about him.
So how do we get over that hump? How do we make it a thing to where, we're in a space to where Black men can feel, comfortable seeking mental health services or going to talk to a shrink or.
I know. I mean, do we do that? So we would need to categorize it, because someone that will take the life of their children versus someone to take the life of their wife, those are two different. I would say those are two different issues, how you would actually attack those. But is seeking a mental health professional, does that work? That's this is the question I'm asking.
Sure.
Does it help? Does it curve it, or does it eliminate it? Or does it bring clarity, or does it they just go through the motions and still do it? What we don't hear is if any people that have taken the lives of any of these women or of their kid, were they under doctor's orders, doctor care? We don't ever hear about that.
Good point.
Yeah, we never hear. So I don't know if it's working or if it's not. That's what I'm saying. You know,
Sometimes not as far as the family member go, but as far as some of these school shootings, you do hear of some of the kids that are on medications or are
Okay.
going through some things. You do hear of that. But I don't know as far as, like you said, about the domestic violence of killing your family. And stuff
yeah.
Like that.
The only thing you hear about domestic violence, you may hear, well, he was under restraining order. We hear that, right? We don't ever hear that he had been seeking help, and either it worked or it didn't work. And maybe someone could correct us, maybe in the chat, but that's not something I've heard.
No, I haven't either. You never really hear like if they are talking to somebody, because I'd imagine they probably wanted to be as if they're not, right? Because you hate to hear that. Oh well, this guy had a shrink for 7 years and then he
still did it.
He still killed his kids and shot himself and his wife. Like that'd be terrible. That'd be a terrible headline.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know if seeking a professional help works.
Right.
But I do know what I need to clarify that, because it does help in personal growth, dealing with unrealized traumas of childhood or maybe an abusive relationship. I've seen where people have healed from that by being able to, more people today they have a person.
Right.
They have a professional person that they talk to. And people that I've talked to tell me how it works. And they tell me, hey, man, you might need to go sit down and talk to somebody. I was like, I do myself. Because I'm a counselor. But no, on a serious note, I just, so I've heard that people have reported that it works, but we've never talked to a person that's considering, taking the life of their loved one or child. I just never really hear it.
Is it a true deterrent? I mean, we'll probably never know, but I think one thing that, those of us that do care, that do want to, figure out a way to close that gap, for Black women to feel safe with us. Cause they choosing the bear. They said, right. Yeah, we'd rather hang out with the bear.
Cause they don't feel safe.
So so just thinking like, me, myself, I want to make it, not necessarily I'm gonna make it cool to go, talk to somebody. I'm not going to make jokes about that being an issue. I'll try to remove that, from my lexicon.
Right.
Right. If I'm, I would, just make a commitment to, speaking about seeking those services as a positive thing as to it being
I
taboo.
agree with that.
I think that's one thing that we could do. Start change our language around it.
Yeah.
I think that could be one step in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because go get the help if you need it, or even if you don't think you need it. I'm not against it. I just never sought that type of help, but I can see how it can be beneficial.
Absolutely. We can definitely look into some resources, maybe share with the audience.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people as of late talk about going to see a counselor.
Yeah,
or
I've heard it a lot too.
Psychotherapists and things like that. Now, and like you said, they say it helps. Sitting down on that couch, that helps. So I've never had one. Maybe I'll get one day.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I was joking earlier. I probably need to go sit on somebody's couch.
Well, I know one thing. Everything don't need to be talked about.
Well,
there you have it.
That's it for another episode of Forward Social Conversations. Until the next time, peace.
Be safe.